What's going on, everybody? Welcome to ADJ's Stay Connected educational series. My name is Corey. I'm one of the product specialists here. I support the LED panels as well as the several softwares that we distribute, one of which being ArKaos Media Master. Today, we're going to be looking at edge blending, multi-projector systems. What we have today are two BenQ projectors. Unfortunately, we only have tabletops to work with today, so we have them on some tabletops. Really, we're just trying to give you an idea of what the software can do. We're going to be using Media Master Pro, and of course using the video mapper side of things. One thing I do recommend is downloading the software now, because it is a free download. You're able to download it to your system and just follow along with what I'm doing, get yourself kind of an idea as we go along what's going on here. So as some of you might have tuned in a little early, you guys might have seen what we had kind of projecting up onto the wall. It's kind of what we're going to discuss. Some edge blending and really the benefits of using projectors rather than LED panels, or for some of the customers or professionals that we have out there that own projectors and not LED panels, you can always take up the projector to the next level. So let's go ahead and get into it. What I have on display right now is actually the interface, and also I'm actually going to go ahead and close the software down and essentially start from the beginning. So the first thing you're going to want to do is obviously connect the two projectors to your computer, whether it's a Mac or a Windows system. Because I am running on a Mac, what I'm going to be doing is going into the system preferences and then clicking on my displays. Under your displays, you'll have your arrangement option, and here is where you'll identify your computer as well as your two projectors. So you'll see here, that's my left side projector, and this is the projector on the right-hand side. So what you want to be sure when you're running through the system is that you do not have the computer mirroring your displays, because then we're obviously just going to see the same picture across the board of the two projectors. So we want to make sure that it's unchecked of the mirror option, and now you have your two separate projectors here as well as your desktop. So once you have that locked in, we're going to go ahead and close that and then go ahead and launch the Media Master software. So while that comes up, a key thing when setting up your projectors is to give yourself about a 15% to 20% overlap, just so that you can use the software to go ahead and blend it together and make it easier than trying to put yourself to where the two projectors meet just touching one another. It's going to be a lot more difficult, and of course, you don't want to do anything greater than 20%, because then you're going to be doing a lot of blending and having to manipulate the picture as well. So now that we have Media Master launched here, I'm going to go ahead and launch Video Mapper. You can find that under Edit. You'll have Video Mapper here. For some of you that already have the software, you guys might know on the Mac, you have the Command M key, just a quick hotkey that'll get you to Video Mapper quicker. And here you can kind of see already where I had previously had it set up to have the two units grouped. So what I'm going to do is just create a whole new project, and again, like I said, start this from scratch. So there you go. So when you first launch Video Mapper, this is what it's going to recognize. Obviously, your BenQ projectors, 1 and 2. So you have A3, A2 being the two projectors that you have there. And then up here, you have your A1, which is, again, your desktop. You'll notice that there's a little dot that kind of traces over the display. That's kind of indicating to you exactly where your mouse is on which display at that point. So here, if you see I drag over A3, it's going to let me know I'm on this half of the projection. So once we have them there, we want to be sure that they are selected. So here you'll see the dot, they're both selected. So that means when I do enable full screen, that's where I'm going to be outputting to. And we want to make sure that, our color LCD is not selected, because we don't want our full screen display to take over our desktop. So now I'm just going to go ahead and group the two units. There you go. So now you'll see you have group, you have A2, A3. So now essentially anything that I create moving forward as far as surfaces go are going to be across the two projectors, because now the system is seen as we're using the two projectors as one. So here, when I select A2, you'll see that it's obviously my projector on the right-hand side. A3 is the one on the left-hand side. So what I'm going to do now, or actually before I get into that, on the right-hand side, you have your settings. And here's where you can change the arrangement of the way you have the two projectors set up. In any way, or in any way that you may have it selected, you can obviously switch it. So in the case that you may be going two vertically, instead of the two horizontally like I have here, you can just go ahead and switch it over to a 1x2. But like I said, here we're going 2x1. Another thing you can do is select the projector that you're dealing with and make sure that you're running with the same resolution across both. So here I'm running at 6040 by 480, which I really don't want. I want something greater than that. But here as well, I'm running at 6040 by 480. So they're both on the same resolution, but we're going to change that to give us something greater. So we're going to go 1024 768 on both. And now you see that you make the change on one, and it's going to go ahead and add it to the other. Now that we have those, we're going to go ahead and create a surface on the two projectors. Actually, before we do that, we'll go full screen so that we can see what we're going to be doing. So at the top here, you have this square. If you keep your mouse over it, it'll say enable, disable full screen. You're going to go ahead and click that. And then now what you were originally projecting on is going to go black. That's going to let you know that the software has now taken over the two projectors and is now engaging them. So now you know, okay, I do have control over the projectors. So what we're going to do now is go ahead and hit the square option here, because obviously you just want to cover a standard square surface. In the case that you're making something a little more abstract, you can select the triangle, but we're going to go ahead and just go with the square option. So now you'll see it drop down here in my canvas area. Let's see if we can get this zoomed in just a little bit. Here, here in my canvas down here. So this is pretty much just showing me my full display resolution, which is this box, is what I have to essentially work with. Anything within that, I'm within the resolution. Anything outside of that, you're not going to see it. You're going to have a distorted picture. So what we want to do to go ahead and begin blending the two projectors together is create one surface across the whole display here, so that we can see exactly where our 2 points are ending as far as the projector is shot on the wall. So now that we have that, we're going to go ahead and go back up to the top here under our sources, because obviously we can't really tell what we're looking at. We can just see two half pictures. So we're going to put up a test picture to make it easier for us to blending them to the two projectors together. ArKaos has already inputted several test images for you that you can just double click here and just scroll through the ones that you want to work with. I find this one to be a little bit easier for myself when projecting, just because you have the squares to go off of the ratio, so you can see whether or not you have one side greater than the other, as well as several of the pictures are already put in different formats, like 16:9, 16:10, and 4:3, depending on how you have your ratio set up. So here I'm going to run with this one. I'm going to go back to mapping setup. And then now I'm going to go ahead and select the projector in which I want to manipulate first. Because again, we're not actually manipulating the surface yet. We're going to manipulate the actual projection that we have as far as through the projector itself. So we're going to go ahead and select the projector on the right-hand side. So here we have A2, which is the BenQ projector on the right. So now I'm going to go to the right-hand side and click correction. Now here you have your different options. You have your geometry option, you have your soft edge option, which we're going to be using, of course, to blend them a little bit later. But first, we're going to go ahead and select the geometry option. You got to be sure that it's engaged there. So if you notice, prior to me clicking it, the box is just empty. Now when I click that, I have now the ability to select whichever corner I want to manipulate to get myself within my surface area that I'm going to be projecting onto. So for us here, you may notice that the projector A2 is shooting just over to the right too far, and it's kind of in the truss, and we don't want that. We want to be dead center within our surface area. So what I'm going to select, just so that I can move it all over evenly, is select the center option square here, and then just click and drag it. Oh, let's kind of zoom myself in. Let me just reset this in the center. Click and drag it to the right until I'm just in the edge of the grid that I want to shoot. So if you notice, obviously because the projectors are at a slight angle, the top of the projector is already within the picture line that we want, but the bottom is still not there. So now what I'm going to do is instead of still manipulating the center option, which is going to move over my entire right side line, I'm just going to select the bottom point and just trigger that over with my keypad slightly until I'm within my canvas line there. So now you'll see I'm just in the truss line, no longer bleeding into the truss with this one here. So for now, I'm gonna leave that projector and I'm gonna go over to my left side projector because this one here is gonna be a lot more work to deal with as far as getting that one lined up. Because if you can see, the bottom of that left side projector is bleeding lower than the right-hand side. So obviously we can't extend the right side projection further down. So we're gonna actually have to shorten the left one up to match the right side of the projector. So same thing, what I'm gonna do is select the center point first so I can just bring up the whole bottom of the projector to where I can line it up within a straight line of the right-hand side. So at a quick sight, that looks about right. So now I'm gonna go ahead and work on the left-hand side of the projector and bring that in off of the truss as well. So same thing, I'm just gonna click the center point and drag that in slightly until I'm just within the truss line. So there, if you notice, the top left corner is just within the truss. So now I'm gonna work myself to the bottom left corner point and drag that in just within the truss line as well. So there you'll see it coming into frame and just past, and there you go. So now our two sides are within frame of what we're trying to map, and now we're just gonna go ahead and now adjust the top left projector. So now we're gonna work to the center point here and just bring in the whole top of the line to the projector so we can get a squared frame. Might take a little bit. I don't have the best of eyesight, especially at this distance. So to me, at a quick glance, or for me, not really quick glancing because I'm just staring at it. But for me now, this looks pretty squared. Obviously, in any scenario where you are going to be doing this at a specific install, you're obviously going to take a little bit more time. You probably want to stand up, give yourself a further perspective of the full picture so you can see whether or not it's squared. But from my point of view here, it looks pretty squared. So we're just going to go ahead and continue on. But if you needed to make further adjustments, again, you would just either select the specific point in which you wanted to deal with, or you could deal with the whole top line or just each corner individually. So now that we've done our two corners or our sides, the top and the bottom, now we have to deal with the main meat of the project, which is of course the center blending point. Without that, obviously, you're just gonna have two projectors, a left and a right, not really a full picture. So what I'm gonna do is select my projector on the right-hand side for right now and click correction. Now here, we're gonna activate the soft edge portion of the correction. So here you click it, and now you'll be able to go ahead and implement the width correction, the curve correction, or the center value correction of the projectors. One cool thing about the software that it automatically will implement the changes that you're doing on one projector to the other projector so that it's essentially manipulating the both of them at the same time to assist you in a faster correction of the projectors. So here, if you notice, if I drag the width greater than the number, you'll see it actually pull out the picture further. And if I drag it, or if I minimize the value, it'll smush the picture together in the center. So what we want here is essentially to get ourselves with the two M's of Media Master centered. Of course, if dragging it the way I was is going to give you too great of an increase or decrease, you can always just hit the arrows on the left, or I'm sorry, on the right-hand side of that specific option that you're working with. So for me, obviously, it was the width. So now that I've somewhat got it centered within one another, I'm just going to slightly make adjustments using the arrows to make finer increments. So that somewhat looks, as far as centered goes, the main center looks pretty well. Looks slightly fuzzy, but we'll correct it. But if you notice, just above that, if you notice at the top center of the projection, as well as the bottom center of the projection, you can notice that it's not evenly falling into place, specifically right in this area here where you have your red square. You'll notice here this is still kind of overlapping incorrectly, right? Up here as well. So now here we're gonna make some more adjustments. Now that we've done the curve option, we're just gonna go ahead and go back to our points that we had under the geometry section and just make slight adjustments. So be sure that that you do have the projector in which you want to manipulate selected, because prior to this, I can't tell you how many times I would change the geometry of the incorrect projector, and then I'd have myself in a longer, greater hole than I was previously, So make sure not to speed through these things, because again, when you are doing some edge blending, like we are here, it's a fine increments that you have to make, because anything that's off is going to be noticeable once you get a full picture up onto the screen. You're going to notice any type of imperfection in the middle as far as the blending goes. So here, I'm going to select my A2 option. And because this is the projector on the right-hand side, I'm going to manipulate the left side of the portion, because that's essentially where my center point is with the other projector. So I'm going to slightly click this over so I can see what needs to be changed. And I think it's going to be my left side projector more than anything. So I'm going to select my middle point here and kind of just give myself a few changes there. So looks like it's at a bit of an angle. So I'm going to select the bottom corner here. Get myself squared away there. And I went to the top one. Kind of jumped there. So. Next level, go back to this side. Okay, so now we're fairly close again. So now if we go back to where we were going, and again, projection mapping is one of those that it's going to take time. This isn't one of those things where you want to tell somebody, hey, I'll get it done in 30 minutes, because you never know what you're going to come across as far as projection mapping, because it's such a tedious job. So now if we go back up to the top, you can see we've kind of blended them in a little bit better now. We do have a slight little gap here and a slight overlap down here, but hopefully you guys can't notice it as much as I do. But we're going to go ahead and continue on trying to make this a little bit clearer. So now that we've essentially access the width, we're going to work on the curve of the two projectors. So now I'm going to decrease that all the way so you guys can get an idea of what that is essentially going to do for us. So this is just the overlay of the two projectors. So if I decrease it greatly, you'll notice there it's pretty crisp. Now you can't see any different overlays of the two projectors at all. Here we have our center value. So same thing, I'll decrease this, and you'll notice that's going to give you the exact point in which the two projectors are reaching as far as their projection. So if you notice, the right projector center, the left one's center as well. But that's, again, all the way decreased the center value. So you'll see the separation there. So what we're going to do now is increase this to where we can get it to blend together and just act as one. If you go too high of a value, you'll notice that it's going to be overly exposed or overly bright in the center there. So again, we're just going to look for that sweet spot. And again, I don't have the best eyesight, but to me, that looks good. So there we have a somewhat seamless edge blend of two projectors. If you noticed, it wasn't that complicated. It wasn't too intense or too much to take on as far as different options of what you have to manipulate, different settings, different pages you have to go through. Not at all. It's all in one section, and it's quite easy. One thing I didn't mention while I was doing the soft edging, but I, of course, should, is here in the soft edge segment, you'll notice you have the option to manipulate either four of the sides. You'll notice that one side is automatically blue, which is the side that is already in contact with the other projector, should I say. So this is the one that you want to have selected. So if you notice, there's a white box that highlights the specific side you're manipulating. Again, one thing that I did, I was down here making tons of changes. Nothing was happening on the projector. I was ready to pull my hair out. I couldn't figure it out. And then I realized, well, you might want to have the side selected that is going to be in the center point. So once you select it, you'll notice the values automatically jump to what was there when you first changed them. So that's one big key to always remember as well. So down here, you also can manipulate further settings of the projectors. So if you say you have one projector that has a little more lamp hours than the other projector, so one of them's giving you a slight, a little bit bluer whites or cooler whites than warm whites, the other projector does slightly, like you can see here. You can go ahead and manipulate that within this segment of per display here. So you have your brightness, your contrast, and of course your RGB values that you can manipulate. For us here, we're not really going to jump into that. We're just going to leave it with the blending that we did and kind of just jump into now the benefits of having the two projectors blended and showing you guys some content and what you can do with different surfaces. So now that we have the projectors blended, we're going to go ahead and go back to our sources option. And now we're going to click Media Master. Of course, it's going to go black because we don't have anything selected under Media Master at the moment. But what I do want to highlight is your surface now. So here, this was the original surface that we created, which is essentially the full resolution of the two projectors. And I'm going to leave that because we want that as our main backdrop display there. So what I'm going to do now is just go ahead and rename that so it's not surface 1. We're going to name that something like main or main backdrop. Of course, you can always change it however you'd like. All I did was double click the surface option or where it said surface, and now I'm able to go ahead and change the name. So again, we're just going to put main backdrop. And then just click enter, and that'll save it there. So now you'll notice it says main backdrop in the center. So anything that I want to output to there is going to come directly out. So here are some visuals that I have downloaded previously, and of course just a collection of visuals that I've come up across. So I'm going to just throw some things up there just to kind of give you guys an idea of what we have within essentially the picture that we created. So here's just a simple graphic that we had for one of our in-house haunted houses that we did. So again, this is just the benefits of being able to create the multi-projection surfaces. Now, in different scenarios like your house of worship or your theater, your black box, or in a club, you can use this as an entryway or a backdrop or some sort of projection mapping on the ceiling, whatever it is that you can think of. It's just the endless capabilities that you can do with. Of course, the benefits of it are being able to manipulate as well as not doing just one surface, doing multiple surfaces. So again, we made our main backdrop. So say in a situation here, we wanted to create another surface that is going to bring in our logo, for example. So I'll just go up here to our group option, select the square again like I did. It's going to go ahead and create another surface here. So you notice it's giving me the same picture that I had, but that's just because on the Media Master side of it, that graphic is outputting to all displays. So we'll change that shortly. But first, let's go ahead and size this to the corner. Of course, you guys may have seen this at many of our trade shows. This is our patented ADJ logo corner. This is where we hang most of our ADJ logos at 90% of our trade shows. So I'm going to go ahead and drop that there. Now I'm going to go switch back to Media Master. And here I already have my logo dropped in on my bank one. So down at the output option here, you have all outputs, you have main backdrop, and then you have surface 1. So I'm going to click surface 1 and then bring that up. And you'll see it overlap because I have not changed my surface or the output of surface or the output of 2, which currently has all outputs selected, which we don't want because that means it's going to give me the same picture on everything that I created as far as the surfaces go. So we're just going to put that to just main backdrop. And once we do that, you'll notice now the logo is by itself in the corner, blending in with the image that you see there. So it's not overlapping now, it's its own picture in itself. So this is great with, again, being able to brand your logo, being able to brand titles or whatever it is that you have specifically to yourself. You can go ahead and create that there. So now I'm gonna go back to Video Mapper and name this one Logo. And click Enter. And now many of you are wondering, well, Corey, every time you click one of the surfaces, there's this red line around the whole box. I don't want that while I'm in the club or while I'm at my theater. Don't want a red line around it. That doesn't look good. That goes away once you close Video Mapper. So I'm going to close it just so you guys can get the idea. I didn't close it as of yet because we were going to continue making the changes. But there you go. That's essentially what you're going to be looking at once the Media Master Video Mapper page is closed. You have your full picture. No more red box, nothing that needs to be changed at this point. But again, this is once you've already created your surfaces, you've already created the sizing options, you have the locations placed that you want, and everything is good, you can go ahead and close it. You don't want to leave it open the whole time because again, like we discussed, you're going to have that red line just around the border the entire time. In the case that you wanted to add a third layer or continue adding layers, you can. Again, you would just go ahead and go into Video Mapper and then just select your group and just hit square, and you'll have another option that you can drop in the top left or the top right. So we'll leave that one there for now. So now I'm just going to kind of go back to the actual page here and just show you guys the different capabilities that you have as far as what you can do once you do have the projection mapped out. Kind of like we said, for theatrical placements, we have the ability to just create a simple backdrop. This would definitely take your stage to the next level. Or for some of the nightclubs that are out there that have maybe just a plain wall behind the DJ, they're not really sure if they want to drop in a full LED wall. Of something of that nature, you can go ahead and use 2 projectors, and I mean the graphics are just the same. Of course, you have the same clarity in some of the pictures. Obviously, the brightness isn't going to be the same pop as in the LED wall will, but again, this is just different options that you have for some of the customers or the professionals that we have that are out there that already have the software or are looking into a software that can give them another option. So I'm just going to scroll through a couple different graphics so you guys can kind of see the actual blending of the 2 projectors so that we're not like, oh, Corey just did it real fast and kept playing flashing images so we couldn't really see that they were blended together. So here's a good one application for like a house of worship. Say again, you have a blank white wall on one side of the church or your temple. You can go ahead and put a projector aiming in that segment and shoot yourself shoot that wall with a picture. Pardon my French on that one. But yeah, so there's another option that you have there. And again, club applications. You have one of your best artists out there playing, and he just has a song about money, and there you go. You can just play tons of money falling around him because maybe he didn't take enough out before he got to the stage, so he's not going to be able to throw too many. You can help him out and just throw some fake money for him. But the options, again, really play into the different graphics that you might have. I'm going to play a few HD graphics just so you guys can get some perspective on the quality of just overall picture rather than just flash and trash graphics. That seems to not like to render well on my computer, so we'll try this one. And if you notice here, I'm having to just change the output on each one because I previously have not. To main backdrop just so that they don't overlap. So there you go. So here, for some of you that have been in quarantine, we're going to give you a lovely view of the beach because here in LA we have the beach not too far away. So try to give you guys a little perspective of our home. Unfortunately, I see more mountains where I live, so which doesn't mean I can't take a 15-minute drive right now that there's not that much traffic in LA, which is amazing. But the options are endless on what you can output there. So the benefits also, I created a few little not advertisements, should I say, some public service announcements that have been going around that we thought, we'd like to show as well. So again, you can create text messages that you can have scrolling across the content that you're playing. So say it's a wedding, a club's perspective. You can have, New Year's Eve, whatever it is that you like. You can type it in under the text options and have it scrolling. The good thing about it also is that you have various, in the software at the bottom, you have various options as far as text in the text folder goes, as far as how the animation of the text is going to come out. So say you want something a little bit more exciting than just this basic scrolling across the bottom. You have different options here that you can select. It'll give you cool effects that'll come across. Just, again, simple things that'll take an average text message to the next level that'll just give you that wow factor. This one's for the kids, Got to catch them at their high point real fast with a flash.
Corey, there's a question.
Sure.
What video are we using for the ADJ logo? And is it possible to do transparencies with the blue or green screen using an image?
So what we have as far as the ADJ logo, that's a .mov file. So the codec is .mov. And yeah, you can. So you would just simply set the specific layer or in that bank that you're using. So for us, it's the ADJ logo. And then actually, it's going to be all of them that we're currently using. But because we are multi-layering, in the mixing option that you have here, you have this addition option. You want to just select that. And what that's going to do for you is going to allow you to add a visual on top of another visual. So here you have the ADJ logo that's set to addition. So say if I were to put that to replace with another option, it wouldn't come up. So let me change that. Technical difficulties. But yes, you would be able to do it with the green screen. You would just obviously put your green screen, which you wanted, and the graphic that you wanted to display on top of that, you would just have that in addition, bank there, and just layer one on top of the other. So the way it's going is obviously your bank one is going to be your master visual, so that's what's going to kind of overtake first, and then the ones are going to follow after that. One thing that we wanted to show previously, unfortunately, we had to bring this curtain in due to the distance-wise, but previously we had a frame that we were going to frame out. But I think we're going to show you a little bit of 3D projection mapping at this point. So now that you have these two visuals as far as your mappings go, you have your two banks set up and say, well, this is all cool, Corey, but I want to do more than that. I'm more of a wedding guy. I have this wedding going on and they want to projection map their cake. I've seen some guy on Instagram do it. I want to be able to do it as well. What does it take to do it? Sorry, guys. Unfortunately, where we had it set up right now, it's not going to work, but slightly more to the right. Sorry about that. That works. Sorry, the object it was in the center point of the two projectors, so it was kind of in that dead space there, so we had to slide it over. But again, we're going to just show you a slight 3D object. We're going to projection map onto this 3D option to give you guys the perspective of how that works. Again, for those that are projection mapping a cake, whether it's a table. One thing that we have a customer out in San Diego who has a dinner show. It's a dinner magic show. Then he actually has his venue set up with several tables where you have dinner. And one of the main things that he has is he actually has the table's projection map. I don't want to give away too much because it's actually quite the show. It's really cool. I actually was able to check it out myself and help him out slightly with the projection mapping. But again, he has about 8 tables and I think 4 different projectors in there. And each projector is covering 2 tables. And he just has them projection mapped out. And he has some cool stuff that he plays across them during the whole event. But I mean, the options are really endless for you to play with there. Whatever you can come up with, you can pretty much do as far as the projector allows you to hang it in that way, or you have enough distance to throw with the projector. So now that we have the object staged, we'll go ahead and try to projection map onto that. So some of you guys might be like, Corey, I just see a big shadow now. It's actually a column just in front of that shadow. So what you see is the shadow, and then in front of it is the column. So I'm going to go ahead and bring back Video Mapper. Select my group option here. Give myself a new surface there. So what you want to do is just kind of get the greater portion of the column in sight, and just frame it for the most part. And again, we don't want to go off the shadow. We want to go off the actual column. So we're just going to frame the column itself. All right. So zoom in a little bit more. And I mean, there you go, 3D projection mapping. You're projection mapping onto a 3D object. No, I'm just kidding, guys. So now that you have the column framed, you have the ability to go into this edit grid segment on the bottom right of your options here, or of the video mapper segment on your output. So out here you have your edit grid. So what you want to do is go ahead and select that. And now you'll see these various options come in with an arrow looking like it drops in a dot or such. Now this is going to give you horizontal points, or vertical points, should I say. So now if you notice, there's several lines that have come in. I'm just going to add in a couple horizontal lines as well. I'm sorry, there's one horizontal line, there's two. I need one more of these. So now I know it's just a little hard to see, guys, but if you can see it within the actual interface, there you go. So that's a little bit better. So you can actually kind of see now the different lines that are within the column. So now on the software, you actually have these various points that you can manipulate individually to give yourself a better coverage of this column. So instead of just giving a square frame, kind of like the way I did jokingly, you can kind of now really get intricate with the 3D mapping of the object that you have. Again, unfortunately, this is kind of what we had lying around. We're trying to look for something with a little more surface space, but again, not many stores are open, as you guys may understand at the moment. So we had to deal with what we have. So here, I'm gonna go ahead and start trying to better cover the column. So let me just zoom in a little bit on my mapping here. Sorry, dealing with the magic mouse. As we all know, they tend to do magical things on their own. There we go. All right. There's also these plus sign and minus signs if you guys would like to make it a lot easier than the way I just did. So I'm going to select the top left corner here and just slightly drag that corner out. So if you'll notice, it's kind of covering just the top left corner of the column there. Do the same thing to the top right corner. So of course, the more points you add, the more points you have to manipulate. So you can get pretty intricate. I'm not gonna get too crazy with this one, so I'm just gonna try to do something very quickly across it. Again, we just wanna show you guys the possibilities and the advantages of having Media Master Pro and the Video Mapper software with the projector. Of course, you have this capability with LED panels as well. As I'm sure many of you have seen with the different trade shows that we've done, all the different projection or the LED mappings that we've done there. Zoom in down here at the bottom line. Get myself across there. So what I'm gonna do here to make things a little bit easier is I'm gonna just drop this surface. There you go. Should have done that in the beginning. So there you go. So now you can have a better idea of exactly what you're dealing with as far as mapping it onto an object. You can add more points if needed, less points. Obviously, we didn't need this many points, but the reason why I added this many points is because it was allowing me a specific section of the totem that I wanted to manipulate. So sometimes you might have to add in multiple points just to get that specific area of the mapping moved out. Obviously, you can see there's tons of center points here that I'm not using at all. But again, I don't need to use these because they're all just the thick of the actual object. So these all can stay. But the benefit is now up in this segment here, I have the ability to drag just this little slight corner out or this corner out slightly compared to where if I would have just stayed with just 4 or 5 points. Some of you might get discouraged at first seeing all these various points that pop up, but that doesn't mean that you have to move every single one of them. By no means. It just target the ones that you need to adjust, and the rest can just stay where they are. So here, you see there's just a slight overbleed on the projection on the backside. So maybe we'll tighten that up just a little bit more, and then we'll get something projected onto it.
There's a question by Jeremy Martorano. I usually add my map points as needed. Do you find that adding all of these points at the beginning makes it easier to map?
It's one of those it really depends on what you're going to be mapping to. For something more simple, of course not. I wouldn't automatically jump into this many points. I would stay with obviously less points just because I'm one of those kind of people that if I see a lot of things and I kind of panic and I get a little nervous, I'm like, all these things, I got to change them all. And I will change them all when I didn't need to change them all. So I tend to just take the same route that you did or that Jeremy stated, which is adding the points in as I go. But here, because I knew this column it's got the bottom segment and the top of it where it's kind of crowned, I just added in all the points. Again, even if you add in multiple points the way I did, you can easily just decrease them by just hitting on the backspace, and they'll just disappear the way they were previously. But if you notice there that I deleted that last segment of them, the top of the column already, the roundness of it kind of went away, and now we're kind of back to the squared option. So again, it's one of those that you can add as you go. Because we were dealing with this, I kind of knew we were going to be adding multiple points, or we were going to need multiple or various points to manipulate. So I kind of just went click crazy and added them in now. But no, you don't have to just add in a ton of points and then deal with it later and like, oh, okay, well, I guess I didn't need all these and take them all out afterwards. That was just jumping the gun and kind of going click crazy on it there. But again, now that you kind of covered the basis of the column, I'm just going to back out a little bit so I can kind of tighten this up a little bit more because it looks like I may have...
Since they can't see the mouse, just be more descriptive where your mouse is on the screen.
Oh, okay. So my mouse is in the center square of the mapping. Let's see if I can... but on the output segment of Video Mapper, so that's the bottom squared option here. So I'm just manipulating that one now just to kind of give us a better idea of what we're doing. And of course, you want to just get it to where that white line is bordering the object. That lets you know, okay, we're within the points of what we want to project onto. So let me just continue to just bring them in slightly, because as you can probably see on the backdrop, you can kind of see the actual points on it. So we're just going to bring in this a little bit. And again, this is kind of where Jeremy stated, having all these points is kind of a little bit of a headache because you do have to then adjust every single one of them. But again, depends on the project, depends on the object, and it depends on how picky you want to get with the mapping. Of course, here we want to get nothing but the best. It's going to be a very, very nice mapping when I'm done.
Tony Martinez says the problem I have encountered is when you have a small object and you are mapping from a far distance. How are people dealing with this?
Small object from a far distance. So you're having issues kind of just decreasing your actual projection to cover the full range of that. If you could elaborate a little bit more, I think I'd be able to chime in.
John Boyler responds by, I use a spotter. Someone can stand closer to the object and communicate back to me when the points are looking right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's always best to have somebody giving you eyesight because, I mean, your eyes might adjust to the mapping because you're staring at it for so long, so your eyes will tend to just blend the points together and you're just going to be like, okay, that looks good to me. And then somebody comes in the room and is like, whoa, you got one leg longer than the other? You're kind of off there. So it's always best to have somebody, especially in circumstances like that where you are much further than the actual object being projected onto. Having somebody there to assist you is always beneficial, not only for having a second set of eyes, but being, again, like he stated, a spotter for you. I tend to use the same thing when doing LED mapping. If I'm behind the stage and of course, or the wall is on the front of the, obviously let's wrap that back up. When I do LED mapping, I tend to use a spotter as well because I tend to be behind the stage and of course the walls are always on stage and I can never usually get around the curtain or whatever it may be, and instead of running back and forth, I tend to have somebody that's willing to, work for a Twinkie or some Skittles and help me out and kind of spot me in the front of the wall. So this is just about on the column there. So there you go. So now I'm going to give this a name. So we'll name this column. I think I spelled that right. That doesn't look right. I think I was right the first time. Column? No. How do you spell column?
C-O-L-U-M-N.
All right, I was right. Woo! Drew a blank. All right. It's nervousness. So now that we have the column mapped, we're going to go into our page. We're going to look for something to project onto the column. Of course, you'd always want to have the content already downloaded on what you're going to project it onto. Luckily, I have this wood picture that I'm going to project onto. So here, I want to make sure that our output is selected to column. And now it's going to go onto the column. Of course, this is it's a .mov file. So we don't really, depending on the circumstances, depending on the project, maybe you want it to be a visual as far as let the movie play. In the case that you didn't want it to play, you wanted to give it that hardwood still look, you can actually just pause the visual here and it's going to give it that static image of that wood grain on there. I know it's a little hard to tell because it is a tight object or a tight surface that we're kind of covering there, but I promise it's wood grain, cherry wood. So that there is essentially a quick guide on 3D mapping an object. Obviously, we can probably get more intricate with it and better cover the object, but with the time frame, we don't really want to take up too much of people's times nowadays on their busy schedules. But wanted to give you guys a good perspective on the abilities of the software.
Do you have a fire or water or anything?
Yeah, so we'll go ahead and see what else we can put on here. should have. So let's do this. So another good thing with Video Mapper, you actually have the capability of cropping your output picture or your output image. So what I'm going to do, just to give ourselves a better visual on this, is actually drag this drag the top segment of our cropping in. And now we have the image covering less space as far as in the cropping segment goes, so that the image can get a better quality instead of acting like it has to cover a full 1024 768 resolution. We just cropped it down to much smaller coordinates. So if you notice up here, it's a 587 by 580 or 568 by 768 width by height, and that there brings the quality of the picture better, because again, now you're not cramming this 1024 768 resolution image onto the small object. No, now you're cropping the actual image to a smaller segment. So that's just, you know, a few workarounds that you can do there with what you have.
All right, they have a question. Morris is asking, if I want to connect up to 6 projectors to my Mac, what device do I need?
So for that, obviously, you're going to need something that's going to allow you to identify all 6 of these projectors individually. So whether it's a switcher or a splitter, but they have to be passing EDID so that each projector is being identified individually. If you just put it on a standard splitter and you just have a 1 to 6, you're just going to have one picture split onto 6 pictures, and you don't want that. You don't want the same picture across all 6 projectors. You want to be able to identify each projector individually. So for like myself here, since I'm running multiple projectors, I actually have to run with 2 dongles to identify the 2 separate projectors through the Mac. If I were to do a splitter, again, it's just going to give me one picture on the same picture on both projectors. So you have to be able to identify it, whether the Mac has, which to my understanding, none of the Macs do have 6 outputs. But in some situations, people have custom-built computers that have multiple outputs. Or in the case that you're looking for a computer or something that can drive 6 outputs, we have several servers that are manufactured through ArKaos, by ArKaos, with the software built into them that come with multiple output options through the whole range of servers that they have. So again, the option really comes down to the capability of the computer's outputs. So for you, obviously looking into some type of splitter is going to be the best route. But again, the splitter has to be giving each projector its own EDID so that the computer recognizes them individually. Other than that, it's really that's as simple as that. It's just a matter of getting the picture to the projector. At that point, the software is automatically going to recognize any output option that it has as far as a graphical card, or a graphic card, should I say. So here, the BenQ, you notice, were picked up right away. The minute they were plugged in, the software recognized them. Of course, in the situation where maybe you connected or maybe you launched the software prior to connecting the projectors and your projectors aren't being recognized, close the software and then relaunch it and you'll have no problem. It's always best to make sure that the computer recognizes what you're using as an output option, whether it's an LED wall, a plasma screen, projectors. Make sure that the computer recognizes them first as display options and then launch the software so that the software automatically knows what its primary display is and what its output options are before moving forward. But yeah, I would definitely look into something that's going to give you multiple outputs as far as, again, a splitter management goes. So I'm just going to play some content. If we have any other questions, we can definitely take those just so we can have something up on the wall. And of course, with the software, you can add just several different effects onto several effects onto the actual graphic, so you don't have to just keep it playing the same motion. The great thing about this is you could take one visual, add multiple effects onto it, and turn it into 6 different graphics. Like here, you have an RGB cycle, you have a blur, a kaleidoscope effect. So if I wanted to, I could play this same visual on 3 different banks with 3 different effects, and most clients wouldn't know, or most people wouldn't know. They would just see the same pictures playing, or just a visual playing on the wall itself. So yeah, that's kind of where we are with the projection mapping, and really just bringing you guys to perspective on the capabilities of Media Master, Video Mapper, and integrating it with projection mappings. I know this is really one of those realms that we really don't trickle into too much, because we are more of a manufacturer for LED panels, so we really push the LED panel side of things a lot more. But we really wanted to take this to the market of some of our professionals out there that have projectors. Again, the House of Warships, the clubs, things of those natures, and just giving you guys an idea of what you guys can do with the projector and taking it to the next level.
A lot of people are asking about computers versus servers. Can you talk a little bit about why servers are useful when it comes to this type of work versus computers?
Sure. So one thing to always take in mind, and I mean, for myself, unfortunately, or not unfortunately, but fortunately, I can only speak for the servers which we distribute, which of course are manufactured by ArKaos. And the great quality difference between a computer and a server, most gaming computers, whatever it may be, are running on gaming graphic cards, or gaming motherboards, should I say, where a server is going to be running on a server motherboard, which is designed and manufactured to stay on essentially 24/7. It's not going to have any type of need to update or be shut down at any point. It's going to be built to run 24/7, like most events are going to be going. You don't want to have to come to the end of the night after programming everything and then being told, hey, we're going to shut down the rig, everything's got to get shut down, or having something be put to an update. As many people know that are running Windows and things of that nature, a lot of the drivers on most gaming computers or computers in general have automatic updates and things that come up, which with many people that know lighting softwares and media softwares don't like updates very much. When you update your computer at random, or an automatic Windows update comes up, it tends to mess with a lot of softwares out there. So the good thing with the ArKaos servers that we distribute is all the drivers, all the graphical cards that are built into it are set to be the top quality to really run the ArKaos software, and to ensure that things like that, Windows updates, don't interfere with your computer. Again, the difference also being is most gaming computers are either something like this nature, where it's a laptop, or just a bulky laptop that runs around with you. The servers, you can put in a rack mount. Most of them you can put into a rack mount system, where you can have that sitting in a rack mount away with the audio gear, whatever other gear, and cable LAN, wherever you might have it set up, and stationed away. And all you have to do is just run your cabling, whether it's your lighting console. You can run your DMX cable to the server and trigger your whole lighting show, your graphics with your light show through the lighting console. And instead of having to have a gaming computer where you're limited to whether it's a MIDI-Con, or having to add in a DMX dongle of some sort to then integrate the computer as a DMX source for your controller or your lighting console to recognize, and then be able to trigger it at that point. So the benefits are endless with the servers. Of course, the server also is manufactured for the road. It's built on a system that's going to take tons and tons of damage if needed. I mean, it's drop tested at 3 meters, or 2 meters, should I say, with a force of 2G force rating. So it's got a shot clock on the inside, so whether your distributors that was taking your equipment to the next show damaged it at any case, because as we know, a lot of trucking companies don't really care too much what they're trucking along. They just want to get it there and get it off. So I can't tell you how many times I've gotten to a trade show and my server rack is tipped over on its side, and the first thing I think of is like, I'm glad that I have a server in there and not just some type of computer that is just going to get damaged with that tipping of the road case. So Again, I can continue to talk on and on, but luckily we have a website. It's got all the information that you might want to look into as far as the capabilities of the servers and the benefits of the servers that we have here. So I would definitely take a look into that. Of course, I'm not too big on many different computers, so it really comes down to your preference. Again, a lot of people that are doing these, a lot of professionals, a lot of our customers may be doing more than just the lighting software with their computer, you know, so having a laptop, being able to just transport it back and forth, because it's not going to be just for their media software, is a much more reliable source. So having a top quality computer is still going to work with you running the software, but for some of those that are, you know, more road warriors and need something that's going to be taking a little bit more damage, definitely the server is going to benefit you a lot more than having a computer of that source. So that's definitely one thing that you would look into. But like with anything, personal preference is always key on that. So, any other questions? Anything else that we might have? Definitely leave comments to let me know if you guys have any questions. For some of you that, you know, already have my contact or my email address and would like to have, you know, a specific question answered, feel free to reach out to me and let me know. But definitely stay tuned. We're going to have another session. Let me know if you guys, again, anything that you guys want to look into on the next session. We're looking into possibly doing an LED mapping with the software, so we might build an LED wall for you guys and do some mapping onto the LED wall.
The video is going to be available on YouTube as well.
And this video will be available on YouTube, so definitely like the video, leave your comments below, and let us know how we did. Thank you guys.